The beginning of my breastfeeding journey as a first-time mom was off to a rough start, but I was able to overcome those hurdles, and here I am still breastfeeding 18 months later. In this video, I want to go more in depth about triple feeding and how to make things a bit easier for you if you were instructed to triple feed. I'm Annabelle Carney, and I love helping mamas just like you have a better birth experience. So if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for stopping by, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ding that little bell down below. So last week, I talked about tips to boost your supply and some of the things that worked for me. So if you haven't already watched that, go ahead and check that out right over here. Before becoming a mom, I had heard of power pumping, but never heard of the term triple feeding. And I'm not going to sugarcoat things. Triple feeding is difficult and exhausting, and I hated it, but it can lead to a successful breastfeeding relationship, whether that ends up being nursing or exclusive pumping. So who is triple feeding for? Triple feeding is sometimes recommended for mamas wanting to nurse their babies, but struggle with anything from a poor latch to insufficient milk transfer, low supply, or poor weight gain of their newborn. So this method of triple feeding originated in the neonatal intensive care unit, aka the NICU, and was used for premature babies, but is now widely endorsed and supported by lactation consultants and pediatricians for full-term babies. As discussed in the previous video, triple feeding is when you do 3 things every single time you nurse your baby: nurse, bottle feed, and pump. That being said, this requires a significant amount of time each day to feed your baby. And remember, in the newborn phase, babies are eating every 2 to 3 hours, or sometimes even more if they're still hungry. So as you can imagine, this process is very time consuming and can take up maybe about an hour and a half every single time. And multiply that by 8 nursing sessions a day, and you're looking at 12 hours every day being spent feeding and pumping. In my case, I'd nurse my daughter on my breast for 10 to 15 minutes, then switch to the other side. Then I'd give her a bottle of 2 to 3 ounces of pumped breast milk. And I did have formula just in case, and I tried to give it to her one time, but she hated it and she never drank her bottle, so that just put a lot more pressure on me to produce and stick to this method. Then after she was fed and burped, it was time to pump for 10 to 15 minutes. So pumping after nursing is a crucial step in triple feeding because your goal is to remove any remaining milk stored in your breast in order to signal them that they need to make more milk. So I would try to have her sit in either her swing or propped up in her lounger, but most of the time she would cry if she wasn't being held. So I had to figure out how to hold her and pump at the same time, or just have my husband bottle feed her while I pumped. Then I would lay her down for her nap and sneak away to store my express milk, then wash my pump parts to make sure that they're ready to go for the next feeding session. And as time went on, I was feeling very overwhelmed, and I found myself occasionally skipping a nursing session in favor of pumping while feeding her a bottle, streamlining our process a bit and keeping us both calmer. And at our lactation appointments, we would do what's called weighted feeds to see how much milk she was getting from each breast. And within 10 days of starting this process, she gained about 11 ounces, which was a good sign that everything was going in the right direction, and I instantly felt a sense of relief. My experience with triple feeding lasted about 12 weeks or more, and it honestly was a long time. And at that point, I expressed to my lactation consultant that this was becoming unsustainable for me, and because her weight was consistently increasing, we discussed a plan to wean from triple feeding, because if you suddenly stop, that could hurt your supply. So I slowly started to take out pumping sessions from the evening and then working my way down to pumping just once in the morning after nursing. And simultaneously, I paid attention to whether or not she was satisfied after nursing in order to reduce the amount of milk that I was topping her off with until we were just down to nursing or bottle feeding for a session. And to be honest, triple feeding was all around draining. It felt like many days all I did was nurse or pump or feed my baby or wash bottles or stress about my milk production. So like I said, triple feeding takes up a lot of your time, and it's just emotionally draining, physically draining, mentally draining on top of being a new mom. So that's why I don't recommend it as like one of the first line go-tos to increase your milk supply. That's also a reason why you would discuss things with your lactation consultant so that you guys can figure out what works best for you in your situation. So as you can see, it requires a considerable amount of time, effort, support, and planning, all things that are already a big challenge in the first few days, weeks, or even months of your baby's life. So for that reason, I want to share with you 6 tips to make triple feeding a bit more manageable. Tip number 1, make sure you have a hospital grade electric breast pump. So hospital grade pumps tend to have a more powerful motor, thus making these pumping sessions more efficient. And the Spectra pumps are the best. And I do prefer S1, which is the blue one, over S2 because I can carry it from room to room instead of having to sit down and be attached to the wall while pumping. And if I'm not mistaken, the S2 is usually covered fully by insurance, whereas the S1 is an upgrade, but I don't know, at least for me it was an upgrade anyways. Number 2, get a hands-free pumping bra. Since you're going to be spending a lot of time pumping, you need to be able to do other things while you pump. And a hands-free bra or even a hands-free breast pump can be a game changer. So you can pump and be on your laptop, cook, eat dinner, even relax a little bit while you do the pumping step. And the right fit for a hands-free bra is crucial to ensure that you're pumping efficiently. Now, I've tried a few different pumping bras, but I really liked this one because it's super easy to put on. You just zipper it up in the front, and it has the right amount of compression and holds those pump parts in place. And it has a Velcro strap in the back so that you can adjust it as your postpartum body changes. No need to buy a new bra. So I really like this one, and I'll make sure that I link it in the description box below. Tip number 3, whenever possible, have someone else do the bottle feeding step while you pump. This is the one step that you can hand off to someone else. So don't feel guilty or afraid to ask because you need a little break too. So luckily my husband works from home, so he was able to help me a lot in the beginning, but there were times where he was unavailable. So I just used my hands-free pumping bra, pumped, bottle fed her while she was next to me in her boppy, and it worked out fine. Tip number 4, utilize the fridge hack. Taking apart your pump parts and washing and drying them before the next session is such a pain. So you can save time and sanity by storing your pump parts in a gallon Ziploc baggie and just putting it in the fridge and washing them every few sessions. And the CDC also supports this and states that if you cannot clean your pump parts thoroughly after each pumping session, you can rinse them and refrigerate pump parts for a few hours between uses to help slow the growth of bacteria. Number 5, buy an extra set or 2 of pump parts. By doing this, you can use clean parts whenever you need them and then wash everything in one big batch, maybe once or twice a day. And you can usually order more free parts every few months or so through the company that you got your insurance covered pump from. And finally, tip number 6, let as much go around the house as you can. Seriously. So when you're triple feeding 8 to 10 times a day, you're going to have to drop some responsibilities. That is 12 hours out of a day. And no one who works 12 hours a day gets everything done in one day. They either have help or it just doesn't get done right away. And that's okay. I have a hard time asking for help, and I'm sure many of you can relate. But once I stopped stressing about everything that had to be done, I felt so much better. So, figure out what you can outsource and delegate to someone else, and just let go of the remaining tasks that are not so high priority during this short period of time. It'll definitely lessen your stress and give you a bit more stamina to persevere through this rough part of your breastfeeding journey. So that wraps up this video. Hopefully this gave you an insight of what triple feeding is like, how it can help your breastfeeding journey, and how you can make the process a bit less stressful. Alternatively, I do think that if the struggle and stress of triple feeding outweighs the benefits, I encourage you to pause at any time and have this honest conversation with your provider and reevaluate your circumstances and your goals, because ultimately your baby does not care if they are getting breast milk or formula. They care if they are being fed and loved. So listen to your gut, because however you feed your baby, whether that is by nursing, pumping, formula, or even combo feeding, will be the right decision for you and your family. And I want to remind you that you are doing more than enough. So be kind to yourself during this season. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.